we're challenging each other and we're challenging the industry and we're challenging
status quo.
The whole notion of what a creative / production studio is.
This is The Fabulist. I'm Joel Pilger. Running a creative studio or production company looks glamorous from the outside, but inside, it's grit. It's pivots, face plants, burnout, and finally, those moments when everything clicks. This is the podcast for founders by founders. Honest, drink-in-hand conversations that skip the show reel and get into the messy business of running a standout studio that produces truly great work. I've built studios, advised leaders, and today I run Forum, the private community for my guests and founders like them. Many conversations here continue there. Okay, ready? Let's get into it. To hear more of these episodes or to push your creative business forward, just go to joelpilger.com. The people that are going to be at the dinner tonight, are there any agency people or any brand or clients or that kind of thing? Or is it all?
There's a few production companies like us that have gone into the agency kind of thing.
Meaning becoming more agency?
Becoming more agencies. It's interesting because there's a couple of people that are showing up who have sold. One production company is actually sold to an agency. So they can speak from that perspective. But as we were kind of like thinking of who we wanted to invite from this area, it was kind of like an interesting line to draw. It just shows you how gray it is in the industry. We're like, what do they belong in this group or not? And then you turn the mirror back on yourself and you're like, well, do we belong in this group then? If it's just
right. What is the group?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's great that it's gray, and it's actually given us the thought to like we need to do another one of these and like expand the group a little bit.
Shift the focus.
Yeah.
But so no buyers in the room.
That's interesting. No.
Well, we have worked for one of these other companies. No.
You see what I'm saying?
No.
Because when you bring in a real buyer, everybody is a little bit like, I can't talk shit about my
air
employees,
my dirty laundry,
or certainly talk shit about my clients.
Yeah,
because that person's gonna know. Wait, that's the way these guys talk about me behind my back.
Yeah, right.
I would say some collaborators though. Like there would be a world where we might hire one of these smaller shops to do a project for us.
That's right. And one of these shops has hired us in the past.
That's correct.
For production. So there is cross collaboration in a bit. And it is a very small town at the end of the day. We all cross paths in a lot of different ways.
Did you guys do work with Beeman ever?
No, have not actually.
Yeah, he's coming down.
That's the other cool thing. There's like people in this room that we have not met. Some we've met through Forum. That are in New England that we've never met, which is like, people from New York and LA are like, whatever, that like you don't, but here it's weird not to know everybody in the room. And it's like weird to think that there's people in this business in our region that we haven't met before.
Well, don't feel bad because even in London, definitely in Amsterdam, and then Minneapolis was just a few weeks ago, that the room is full of people that have never met.
Yeah.
They all know each other or know of each other. Some of them even collaborated, but most of the rooms never met. And it's really funny. Yeah. And I'm guessing tonight is going to be, in a way, kind of historic.
Yeah.
Because when's the last time these 20 odd people ever got together? Never.
Yeah. And I think as I look at the list, I look at it and I see this is kind of like the next generation, right? I think there is probably a room you could have put together of people who were there before us.
The old guard?
Yeah, exactly.
No, seriously.
I think this is definitely, I see this group as like carrying the baton to the next, whatever this industry looks like.
Right. So does that mean
toast tonight?
I have to give a toast.
Do you have to give a toast to the old guard and to the new guard? Well, that's kind of interesting though to think about, because why is Vagrants in the room then?
Yeah.
Because haven't you guys been around a minute?
For sure. But we've always been a challenger from the get-go. And that was a part of our makeup. And that was honestly part of our business plan, was to be a challenger. And I feel like what this actually is a realization of is that we are no longer the challenger, but all of us in this room are all challengers now. Right. And we're challenging each other, and we're challenging the industry, and we're challenging
status quo.
The whole notion of what a creative / production studio is.
Right. So what year did Vagrant start?
Vagrant started officially in 2017.
Okay.
We June 1st, 2017 is this date that we go back to as like our affirmative birthday, but it's a little murky.
If you were truly old guard, you would have said, I thought you were going to say 2007 or maybe 97. So what was the old guard? Like, what was the industry like in Boston before what we're calling this current or new era?
Yeah. Boston for years and years and years was dominated by really 2, at most 3 union production shops. And they would occasionally work with the big agencies in town. Boston has always traditionally been a big agency town, for a small city, big agency town. But if they were to win that work, they were big projects and they had to be union shops. And there were some local directors, but a lot of the directors would come in from LA and New York. And it just made it really impossible for smaller shops to rise up to the next level, because there was no in between, right? There was no middle ground. It was big and it was tiny and there was nothing else.
And what started to shift?
Well, we were on opposite sides of that. I mean, Dustin and I were sort of polar opposites, yin and yang. And really, he was editing inside one of those big agencies, and I was that freelance DP director trying to claw my way up, doing bigger commercials. And it was so hard for me to break through that ceiling. Dustin was getting some opportunities to direct. I was getting some opportunities to direct bigger things, but both of us were like looking at that ceiling like, man, there's just no way to break through to these couple. I interviewed at those shops like, hey, are you looking to add a local director to your roster? And they were like, yeah, great. No, definitely not.
Nah, we're good.
When did some of the motion and some of the animation people start to emerge? Was it around this same time?
I would say early 2010s. I'll shout out Newfangled. I think Newfangled was really the first motion studio to rise up and win big work. And that definitely started to lift the ceiling. There's a company called Windy Films that was they're right out of college when they started, and they had this like very youthful energy, and they're doing some really great work. A lot of like nonprofit and docu. They're kind of at that beginning, marrying docu filmmaking with brand storytelling. Winston was a part of that.
I shot some things with them early on for sure. I mean, I think it's the DSLR revolution, right? It was happening at the time.
Okay.
And there was a lot of things that were starting to break apart. You have one big commercial campaign that was coming into town. The 3 union shops would triple bid that one thing. So those 3 union shops were at each other fighting for the one job in town, right? That started to fall apart. It wasn't one TV commercial anymore. There's lots of channels to start filling. And now you started to see like, oh, maybe there are opportunities for these smaller shops. And that's around the time we decided, I convinced him to
Tim, with his job. Where was Tim in the world at this time?
I was
in the early teens.
I was in-house at an agency, but not an ad agency. It was public relations, marketing, creative, right? So sort of like in the broad spectrum of like communications, right? Like kind of the opposite end of advertising. So, but I was the first creative hire inside that agency. And so it was sort of a separate but same path in a lot of ways. I like to think anyway.
So yeah, I'm gonna guess something.
Yeah.
When I hear 3 big agencies, what's the term you use?
So 3 big production companies.
When a campaign was going to actually shoot in Boston.
Yeah. But the situation you just described, I'm guessing that they all hated each other.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes.
It was tribalism at its finest.
Yeah. Right. Like and again, I know nothing about this market other than sort of from the surface, right? But I can infer from what you've described, because it's a very common thing. It's what a buddy and I call a prison eater mentality, right? It's very zero sum.
Yeah.
So have you seen that mentality shift over the past decade? Like, is the generosity paradox as I call it, at play?
It's, there's remnants of it still there. And what we tried to do from the get-go was to, we had this saying, from the beginning, rising tides raise all ships, right? And the idea was just to bring more work to Boston and also convince creatives, specifically agency creatives, that good work can be done in Boston. Because otherwise that work would go out to New York, LA, Tokyo. But we had to convince them that we were doing great stuff. And if we can do it, then somebody else can do it. And I think having at that time the DSLR revolution kind of coincide with it. And then you also had internal production companies starting up at agencies and things like that were also doing work. I happen to be at one of those.
Same. I was one of those too.
It unlocked everything, and it rewrote the rules. And now there's, it's not just the triple bid going out to only 3 union production companies.
Right. Okay. So there's this, because I think it's interesting. I think this is happening in every market. Mm-hmm. Like we're slowly convincing, I think, everybody in the world that there's more opportunity than we all have the capacity to tackle if we open ourselves up and help each other and make each other stronger. So now you said Vagrant started 2017?
2017. It was Winston and I talking at the time as just collaborators. I was at the agency. I was starting to get director opportunities within the agency. Basically, like we were doing, smaller client stuff, but I was, directing it just with the agency, and we would hire out production services. So we worked with this producer at the time, and he wanted to kind of grow us into directors, and that we wanted that. We kind of fancied that. And as we got working, we realized that we weren't just going to win work on our merits alone as directors on our reels, because our reel
really,
because
our may come as a surprise.
Frankly, our reels weren't there and we weren't cool enough. So we realized that we had to develop a brand. The brand was the key that unlocked us doing bigger, better things. And through that process, we kind of realized that like the sum of the whole was better than just the individual parts. And
okay, so all right, now I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, because I know someone's watching or listening and going, I don't even know who these guys are. So give us your hello.
Hi, I'm Dustin Devlin, founder and CCO, Chief Creative Officer. I'm getting used to saying that. I love it. At Vagrants. And
there's a story behind that whole phrase you just uttered right there.
I feel
right?
like we're going to unravel it. Yeah.
Now, and then, okay, well, let me have you do your go. Sure. And then Tim, you sit tight for a second.
Okay.
So give us your intro, because there's also a story behind yours, I think.
Sure is. I am co-founder of Vagrants and COO of Vagrants. There's a lot of operations that are happening now that definitely not what I came up in this industry doing. And that's a little bit of a dress for the job you want, less than the job that you currently have, in that sort of phrasing it that way. So, okay, now this is really interesting, because don't get lonely over there, because I'm coming for you next.
Chilling.
But just hearing the way you guys introduce yourselves, I'm like, well, that's different than where you started.
For sure.
When you started, what was the dream?
The dream was to direct and do the, biggest, baddest ass commercials that we possibly could. And it's funny, it's not that isn't a part of the dream. We've just become less personally connected to it. And we want it for our company. We want it for our collaborators, the directors that work for us. But we are less personally. The dream has died inside us.
No, it's changed, right? It's evolved.
It's always evolving, right? But we started out being directors, trying to direct the biggest, baddest, coolest stuff we possibly could. But when we started Vagrants as a brand, speaking of podcasts, we were listening to Alex Bloomberg with his startup podcast. And it was the first time I had heard of what a lifestyle company was. And I think there's very nice little happenstance that we're like, maybe we want to be a lifestyle company. And I think that was early on, it was really nice to have that. And that's informed everything we've done over the last 8 years. And I think now seeing, what are the sacrifices you want to make to chase that dream, or is the dream shifted a little bit? And that lifestyle company that we've built, I think that's like, we've realized that's really more the dream that we've been chasing all along.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. So when I hear biggest badass creative commercial work, I'm gonna infer, but please confirm or deny this. Does that also mean we want to have do big budget work for big brands or big agencies, and we want to make good money? And and we want to have like freedom and independence, because creatives, we're all like, yes.
Yeah, we want to have all the things. We want to have our cake and eat. We want to be hungry man, right? Like that was the idea, all of it. Right? Yeah.
Right. And same for, is that
Absolutely.
Also your dream?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So now how did that go?
Yeah. I mean, for a while, I think we were calling it maybe like Vagrants 1.0 into 2.0. I mean, I think we very much kept that dream alive. We're like, oh, well, we can be business owners and we can be directors. And, we just run the business when we're not directing, and we can duck into this and, come back to the business. And, just as you go, you realize, first of all, life happens, and the business changes, every day, every month, year over year. And, that just becomes, that dream becomes less, of a reality, because the business just does demand so much of our, attention. And honestly, you start to realize that doing the business stuff is really fun, and actually why you're doing it.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's like a little prompt for my little freebie that I'm giving out at dinner tonight, right?
Yeah.
That the idea of running a studio is actually the most interesting project that we ever get to work on. But now I'm curious though to ask Winston, because when you said COO, right, we probably lost half of our listeners.
Yeah.
They probably just were like,
Hope not.
I don't get, I'm out. Because, right, as creatives, we have this sort of built-in skepticism of like, business and sales and all that financial crap and those spreadsheets and all that. Like we don't like that. We don't want to hang out over there. Those people aren't cool. They don't identify with that.
Yeah.
And of course, you guys know my jam. I'm like, no, there's the business, and the art of the business and mastering it is the unlock. Agree, disagree. How has that shifted since 17?
Well, I'll say first, being a director, you're always playing a team sport, right? All production is playing a team sport. And I think that's partially why we've accepted and embraced the transition into being business owners. But I think there is this like maybe 5-year time span that other director founded production companies sort of hit that point where they realize, I'm definitely not a director anymore, and I'm more business owner than director. And they toss in the towel and they say, oh, I don't want to be a production company. I'm going to go back to chasing the biggest opportunities I can. I've made a great network. I'm going to be a commercial director, and I'm going to do that. We made it over that 5-year hump. Good for us. And we found that is the most interesting project, and figuring out how to unlock the most potential in all of the people. It goes back to starting our company as a lifestyle company, figuring out what's going to keep people creatively engaged and financially sustained, happy and healthy, actually have a little bit of work-life balance in this industry, which is kind of crazy for a lot of people to actually find. And then you realize when you frame everything in that way, you're like, oh, what are you trying to do as a person, and how can I unlock that in you? And now all of a sudden you're like, well, it's great for the studio, it's great for those people, and we're all winning, and that gets really exciting to me. And when I say COO, talking about a C-suite in this company, it's a little bit like
it's a
whatever.
C-suite of 2.
It depends on who I'm talking to. The real role is founder of Vagrants, I suppose. But it comes back to really that figuring out how you're getting the team to grow. And that is really fascinating. That's why I love being in operations, as we call it now at this level.
Yeah.
So now I'm curious drag Tim into this story.
Kicking and screaming.
Right?
Just kidding.
All right. So I'm guessing there's a Boston story background in here, but when does your story intersect these guys' story?
Classically through a mutual friend, right? Like our buddy Caleb, shout out Caleb. He was like, Tim, you got to meet my friend Dustin. You guys do all the same things. You work in production. You like skiing, surfing, all that stuff. You both drive Tacomas. You know, it's like you're the same person. And it came
so
down to this point where both of us are on production somewhere, both in Florida, both taking pictures on Instagram of the same like sunset.
Oh,
and
how
Caleb
funny.
was like, all right, we got to set this up. So anyway,
Also, both shamelessly promoting ourselves.
100%. Yeah, that should, yeah.
That's what we had in common most.
But yeah. So anyway, that was like 10 years ago, linked up, and then yeah, I've always just been a huge fan of what these two have built and the whole culture and just the history of Vagrants overall. Like some of the like most premier work that's come out of this area has come out of this shop, and so it's just been
thanks.
No, I'm serious. And so just like big fans, right? So a lot of that. But yeah, my story is that like entrepreneur is a word I've been using. Mitch Munson kind of turned me on to that. Inside this, yeah, exactly. Shout out. And the agency that I was at, and again, I was like the first creative hire. I love this quick anecdote that I found this job on Craigslist. So if that doesn't like date it, like super specifically, you know, video production specialist. And but yeah, like, it was just such a tremendous like 12 years I was there, and it was, you know, learning without the same amount of pressure as these guys of like, I had a roof over my head on behalf of like the agency, right? But it was like tons of autonomy, tons of like learnings, mistakes, trips, fumbles, whatever, and like learning how to build a team, right? And so all of that sort of courage and just like whatever, just going through the motions of building a business. And one day I just picked my head up, and I think Dustin put this bug in my ear a couple of years earlier. It's like, you're doing all of the business development and the marketing and the team development, and you're responsible for pretty significant, you know, annual revenue and goals, and you're holding all the client relationships, and you're doing all this for somebody else's passive income.
You're like, I got news for you, pal.
Yeah. So that was like, all right, here we go. So yeah, that was sort of the seed. And after a handful of margarita dates, I think we decided, let's give this thing a go.
So that was an inception moment?
Very much so. When we had been talking for a while, like everybody has that sort of like person that they check in with every, you know, couple months. Hey, how you doing? Tim was that for me. And he told me what he was responsible for in quarterly revenue, I think it was. And I was familiar with our numbers. And I was like,
that's a good thing.
Holy crap.
So this was
this
like,
guy's blowing us out of the water.
This was a six-figure number, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
more than that.
It was crazy. And you were managing, I think you told me at one time, you're like, yeah, we were managing like 35 projects at one time, like 35 projects.
Okay.
And yeah, just the idea of doing that, being able to do, and it wasn't though this was all coming to him, just handed to Tim, 35 projects dumped on Tim. These are projects that Tim is going out, hustling for, bringing in, doing all of the client retention, all of that stuff on his own. And you know, as we do, you know, we really try to see people that are doing great stuff and empower them to do it in any way we can, hopefully under our roof. And Tim was really just like the perfect person to come in at the right time for us too, I should say. It was very much a two-way street.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we realized sort of instantly that, you know, not only was Tim up to something great, but he could teach us a lot about running our own business, which has absolutely happened.
All right, so I'm gonna tell a mini story that when you and I met. Now I don't remember what year this was. Do you remember what year it was when you first reached out to me?
Man,
I think it was like 18.
I was gonna say, ironically, it might have been 17. Just if
might have been 17.
If we want to just put some serendipity in it, but yeah.
No, what's funny is I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but because I sort of read you to be an agency guy, like I'm running this internal team inside this agency, I kind of wrote you off.
No,
I was kind of like,
you literally said as much, like, dude, I'd love to help you, but you don't own this business. And that was like the period. You're like, yeah, I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
But you had given some like sound counsel of like, you know, you should really consider like spinning out as a subdivision and like a new name. And like, we did all that. We actually did all that. And it was really like another sort of unlock for me is like, oh, well, now I know how to better brand and do positioning and all of the things unique to a studio or
one more on the checklist of run your own business.
no, 100%. Yeah, right? So I was like, all right, let's do it again.
So it's funny because when you said I'm at this agency, but I'm going in this direction, I think I might eventually launch my own thing. I sort of thought, yeah, right. Heard this before, especially when I think agency. Right. Good luck with that. Because most people that come from that world can't hang. And that's not a judgment. That's just an observation. And then I remember next time you reach out to me several years later, you're like, hey, partnered with Favorites guys, launched Pennant. Here's how it's going. And I'm like, well, I got to eat my hat or something here because so I just really curious now, what year was it when you and I, was this 2 or 3, 4 years later that?
Yeah, honestly, it was probably like 5 because there was this thing called the pandemic that happened in the middle that like kind of slowed a lot of
you're wrenching things for a second.
lot of things.
But also you did it. You started a company within the marketing company you were working with. He basically had a dry run in starting this thing that would eventually become Pennant.
Should I introduce myself?
Yes. Thank you. I'm so glad. I would have totally forgotten.
Should I pull a Joel and just ask you to intro?
I was going to like try to slip it in, but I'll do it. So I'm Tim Bradley, founder of Pennant Video Co.
I love it. Thank you for the gentle, loving.
He's been on way more podcasts than any of us.
I know, right? Okay, so Tim, when you followed up with me and said doing Pennant and so forth, I was seriously excited, but I was mostly excited because you were you had formed a studio based on what I would just call a different model. It wasn't a model that I'd heard anybody talk about at that time. Now, maybe, sure, there's a few people that are sort of in that model, but for anybody that doesn't know Pennant, what is Pennant? Because I'm going to contrast that when I ask these guys, what is Vagrants? And like, what's the top line public facing positioning?
Yeah. So Pennant, I'm sort of working on this, but we're a video agency that focuses on the mid funnel, helping marketers build out robust buyer's journeys and building trust so that ultimately their audiences can have like better decision making, like empowering better decision making.
So for anybody that says, here's my mid funnel and just goes, well, huh?
Yeah.
Right. There's this journey we all go through when we go from not knowing anything about a brand, and then we're someday in the future we're buying, and that journey is a funnel. Give it to me in your words.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go B2B specifically. So
okay.
Business to business, aka boring to boring.
For Come on now.
But I have a story there. But the ultimately, like a lot of these like sales cycles take many months, even like years, and there's many different like stakeholders in that buying decision. So let's take a piece of software, like a SaaS company or something, right? It's like there's the person who has that pain that's trying to solve that pain with this supposed piece of software, right? So like the user, that person likely is one of many of that sort of title inside of an enterprise company. But then they have to ladder that up to like whoever their directors are. And then they have to ladder that up to whoever is like the CFO or someone who's actually holding the purse string. And if it's like a big sort of paradigm shift in how they like architect this enterprise, like the CEO is going to have to weigh in. So like all these like tremendous touch points and like stakeholders involved, right? So when it comes to the mid, let's start with the top, right? The top of the funnel, awareness, like advertising does the thing it's supposed to do and like sell a click. Someone clicks on that ad or whatever it is, and they've arrived at likely a website or a landing page. That is like the start of the middle of the funnel there. So it's like, how do you build exactly? So how do you build trust long enough over many months across many stakeholders in this, what I describe as like the messy middle, right? And this is that consideration phase ultimately. So awareness to consideration, and then ideally sales close, the decision's been made, and now they're a customer and ideally become sort of that rabid fan sort of affinity at the bottom of the bottom of the funnel, right?
The bottom of the funnel is when they're buying, they're transacting, they're engaging, whatever the thing is, the conversion
threshold, right? And now they're on board, and now you're as a brand, your job or responsibility is to like keep them excited, keep them to sign up, to sign the whatever 5-year, 10-year engagement, right? Like follow you on social media, join the email newsletter, just like stay top of mind and like keep that retention ultimately, right?
Okay, so now let's contrast this, because if that's the model that Pennant is built on, that is so completely different from the era in which I was raised, which was, I want to run a badass studio that's doing what we would now call all top of funnel. I want to do the sexy shit that is going to be on primetime television. I want to do the 30-second Super Bowl spot. Like, that's my dream. And that's all awareness. It's all top of funnel. Am I right?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm looking for
by definition. By
right?
definition. Yes.
Yep.
So I'm curious, when Vagrants is being founded and starting to do its thing, did this model that Tim is building that company on, was Vagrants built on that model? Or, again, I know I'm setting you up with a softball here.
Yeah, no, I mean, yes, we were aware of this world, and I had come from a similar world as well, doing a lot of patient testimonial videos before I went agency side, and then eventually forming Vagrants. So yeah, I knew a lot about it. The way Tim talked about it was in so much more of a thoughtful space than I think anybody else from our world, the production community, would ever talk about it. Because what would we say about that? So we would call it corporate video, or we would call it talking heads, industrials, event coverage, or something like that. And that is just so narrow-minded, and it's honestly how narrow-minded we were about it, because as we were, starting up Vagrants, we were working with a lot of brands. There's a lot of, big tech space here in Boston. We were, lucky enough to be working with a robotics company, Boston Dynamics, that was on the rise at the time. And they needed content like this. But they made the mistake of coming to us first to do the big, sexy spot, launching a 4-legged robot dog. And it had a big budget, and it was a huge piece for us, and very much an identity forming piece for us creatively. Winston directed it, gas him up a little bit. But after that, they needed the mid funnel, and they were coming to us and they're saying, "Hey, we want to do this thing. It's we're going to interview some lab techs, and it's going to be a YouTube video." And we would be like, "Oh, we just charged them the big ticket item. Now, how do we go to the little ticket item? And we could not figure that out."
I'm curious, when you hear this, Tim, are you like, "Oh, that's so funny," because there's it's just a mindset?
Yeah. I mean, it's a mix, right? Because there was a few things you tossed in there, like event coverage. You're like, I wouldn't consider that mid funnel at all. I consider that bottom, because there's no reason anyone would ever watch this event video unless they already have heard of you. They bought in. They want to know the biggest, brightest, next best thing that's happening at this trade show. You know what I mean? So there is and I think that's the overall challenge of this industry, is that it's so murky and convoluted, and it's there's all different. The terminology is just so wide, the gamut. So I think, so maybe I could segue a bit, is having done a lot of this type of work at the old agency. And it was, I sort of was describing it as that jack of all trades vendor, where it was we could do some TV commercials, but we could also do corporate headshots, and we could also do recruiting, and we could also do event coverage, and we could do testimonials, and how about animations and
video podcasts?
Oh, we could do live, so it's just everything. And then you're oh, you're in what industry? Yeah, we could do that. We could do every industry. oh, what channel? Oh yeah, we could do every channel, and it's what are we doing here? Just it's all just sort of spaghetti at the wall. And for me, just you're just so heads down on the grind of finding the next job and the next opportunity. And it's the maybes and the what ifs is this paltry project that came in at our doorstep, it could turn into something else. You know what I mean? It was just sort of no clarity and intention of what are we actually trying to do here? You know what I mean? Like with the work that we're producing, and as creatives, you know, it's like you do invest a lot of the blood, sweat, and tears, but it's like your soul's in there too, you know? And it's like, you are, of course, killing your darlings, like project over project, right? And like finding the next thing. But man, it just like all this sort of coalesced to this like moment of realization and clarity, and sort of like, how did I want to sort of define my sense of purpose, like for the next however many years, right? And then we landed here, basically.
Well, I think just talking about that project and that client, if only we had Pennant back then. Yeah. If only Vagrants,
really?
If only Vagrants knew. It's sort of the perfect case study in a lot of ways. And this is a direct to brand client. There's no agency.
Okay.
This is early on in Vagrants identity, when we still literally had a slide in pitch decks that's had the words, "We are not an agency" in it, that we would hand to clients to be like, don't think of us like that. We don't want to do all of that stuff. We just are doing the big, cool video shoots. Like that's what we do. Right. We're filmmakers, right? Like don't even bog us down with all that other baggage, right? If only we had known better, right? Because there's certainly the power of no. There's certainly the power of understanding what you're trying to chase and chasing it. And you get there largely by saying no to all the other stuff, right? We were just saying no to things to chase that big flashy stuff when we didn't realize how much of opportunity we were missing out on. So that's a perfect example. You have a lot of videos that you want to create with your brilliant engineers talking about these incredible aspects of these robots and what they can do for these different industries. And we're like, no, what a missed opportunity, right? And I think it was amazing for us to prove to ourselves, we didn't really know it at the time, but prove to ourselves that we could go into a brand and help them with all kinds of things. They thought we were just making a video because they didn't have a marketing department. They didn't have an agency. We just became a de facto ad agency for them in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And looking back on it, if we had what we had now and the knowledge, but also the expanded team and especially Pennant, fantastic. Vagrants will make your awareness campaign. We will make your big flashy thing, but we also have a laser focused mid-funnel marketing team that will crush all of that messy middle for you and actually bring your B2B business to the next level.
And we can put together the holistic strategy for the entire scope of work. And that's obviously where we're at now, but it's interesting coming out of that, what our very simplistic thought as business owners and entrepreneurs was, we're saying no to all this work. We're watching this work go away. And we did, when we were talking to Tim early on, we ran the figure, and it was somewhere around $500,000 of work that we had just said no to. That in our mind, we were just fixing this problem. Like, we just need somebody to hand this work to that we can somehow benefit from.
That's the missing piece. You're right. Because we're saying no to guide what Vagrants is trying to become, but what's happening to those, which is important, sure. But what's happening to those no's? I'm sort of offhanded making some recommendations, and I get a bottle of wine from my buddy that took those jobs and ran with them. So we were really on the hunt at the time when, timeline wise, we can start to break this down. But, as we're having these conversations with Tim, seeing what Tim's doing, Vagrants is going like, man, we're just missing out on all of this work. And then we're talking about Tim and we're like, hey man, like maybe you're that guy. And I think it's just 6 months or a year of talking when we realized, no, that's actually not the problem we're trying to solve. The vision that you have for solving that mid-funnel marketing issue is actually way more valuable than just picking up Vagrant scraps.
Yes. Okay, so in case we buried the lead.
We did, didn't we?
Right. Vagrants and Pennant is the term sister companies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that the term we're using?
Yep.
Which means you're all business partners.
Yep.
So why? Why would Vagrants invest in a company which is now Pennant? Why do it that way?
At the time when we were talking, frankly, honestly, it was an experiment. We weren't sure it was going to work, and we didn't want our team at Vagrants to get bogged down or distracted with something while we were still out there trying to, win big work with agencies and triple bids and all that. So I think there was this sort of incentive from the beginning of like, well, let's just start it on the side and see where it goes. And also, Tim just had this ultimate clarity of vision that it was very clear to Winston and I at the beginning of just like, let's support this guy as much as we can, but we just got to get out of the way and just see what he can do. And in very short order, less than a year, I mean, really in the first few months, the whole business case was proven.
So now if I'm Tim, though, I have a really greedy question to ask you, because if I'm you, my thought would have been, hey, Vagrants, why don't you hire me? I'll come inside and I'll leverage the hell out of your portfolio, your client base, and, we'll just do it all under the Vagrants banner. Because by saying, no, let's launch a separate thing called Pennant, correct me if I'm wrong, you're launching a new studio, as it were, with no portfolio.
Yeah, exactly. It was
like, what the hell?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. Like it's whatever, sort of cringy as it sounds, like I hit the LinkedIn DMs and like sort of thankful to my past self for like connecting with like every touch I ever had like throughout that journey at that agency. It would be like CC'd on an email with someone, connect with them. They're in a boardroom meeting I'm in with them, connect with all those people. Just sort of like built this like network over time. And so when I left that agency, I made a big stink of it, like sizzle reel and thank yous and like all the appropriate sort of things. And then it was like, hit the DMs of like, hey, life update. I'm like, I'm working toward this big dream I've always had. Like, I'd love for you to just like follow along. And if you happen to have any like needs or referrals in the meantime, like, please just keep me in mind. And like, I was like floored at just sort of the generosity of that like network. Cause we went from, we don't have any work to like, oh my God, I need to hire like a brand director and like an operations director to like help build this business while I'm doing fulfillment, in these first like 6 months. So it was such a crazy, like rollout of the, there wasn't even a brand yet. I'm not even sure we had a name.
Right.
Beyond the
I love that
LLC.
story.
You did have a brand pretty early, but I think it wasn't just the goodwill that you had. I think it was the clarity and vision. And I think the way you spoke about that, using LinkedIn as your vessel, really got people on board very quickly that they didn't need to see the work.
And now just for anyone who doesn't know, like if we were looking at just like quick bullet points about Pennant, right? Around now, how long? 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years and a couple months.
And
yeah,
change,
so it was June,
right?
Also June 23. Yeah.
And so you've even started to build a team, because I know last time I talked, there were 2 people on your team, but I think you're even adding some more.
Yeah. So we have 5, including myself. And then the beauty of this sort of dynamic is that the collective royal we can look at utilization of team members and like how can we sort of share resources to ensure the rising tide is working, right? So that's been tremendous from the jump, right? And like that honestly gave me a lot of the like last bits of courage I needed to like make that leap. Is like, I'm actually not in this alone. It's like there is this team to support.
So in practical terms, we have, editors on our side that are working on Pennant projects, and Pennant has motion designers on their end because they do a lot more motion design that work on Vagrants projects. That's been tremendously helpful to us.
I think to not miss the main point of like Vagrants being around for, at the time, 5 or 6 years, talking to Tim and wanting to sort of offload scraps. The reason it wasn't that so clearly was kind of back to the lifestyle company understanding, like when you engage with somebody, try to really understand what their motives are now and in the near future. And, identifying like Tim's clarity of vision and Tim's entrepreneurship. He has a dream. Like, the dream word sort of sticks out to me is like, he's had this dream for a long time and he's already built it for another company. What can we do to allow him to build that? And the Vagrants brand is not fully suited to chase those clients in that way. So let Tim make that brand. Let Tim do it in his voice. Let him chase all. And it hasn't been Pennant picking up Vagrant scraps. Frankly, it's been Pennant's clients. They are all of Tim's network and all the people that are the marketers and the in-house folks that fully understand that language and know that they need that trifecta of videos. They know they need those videos for the mid-funnel market.
And by the way, I'm going to say thank you on behalf of all the members inside Forum, right? Because you went through Jumpstart, and over those months and years now that we've been hanging out, you've been super generous. And the roundtable that you and I did all about sales keeping and sort of your method and everything, I thought was super insightful. I still hold it up as an example because I think when people in our industry see your model, there's this I don't get that. I like, huh, what? And what I love seeing is it's obviously working. Like, when did you guys, I'm pointing to Dustin and Winston, when did you guys realize, oh, this isn't something that's an experiment to pick up the scraps. This is something else.
I think it was almost immediately.
It was immediately. It's just talking to Tim.
Knowing there was a real problem there that he was really going to solve.
Well, I think, part of it is just, it's been a slow evolution, but this last 10 years of the agency, the big agencies starting to struggle more and more, like the model starting to crack and break, and this pandemic thing
in-house teams at brands has really like compressed a lot of it too. And yeah.
And we haven't fully gotten into what Vagrants is up to in the modern era here, but I think
where we're heading.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
It's a great segue, because, right, we're talking about a world that's evolving and changing. And you guys already know this, but I'll say it aloud again, putting it out there, that I think between the entertainment industry shifting and fragmenting, the advertising scene fragmenting, challenging, declining, whatever, that the opportunity is for us all to just go right into the brands, speak brand, work for the brands. Yeah. Now, what's funny is I look at Tim and I think, man, if I'm Vagrants, I love the fact that I'm getting all of the sort of intel and experience and connections, whatever, that, because Tim, your model is probably by default direct to brand.
Yeah. And I there might be some context that'll be helpful to the audience here too, is that like Pennant wasn't, and I've thought about this a lot, like Pennant wasn't founded to just like produce more of the same type of work. It was like, we went to market with a framework that was like really specific and unique, that it was like a methodology versus just like creative and craft, you know what I mean? And I think that really helped us from the jump, be different, especially in the eyes of our buyers, right? It's like, oh, like what this trifecta, this video marketing trifecta, like helps really provide a lot of clarity for the marketers that have like 50 other plates in the air, right? It's like, cool, we can trust you from the jump because you understand like where our pains are in the day to day, and like how you can help construct trust along this buyer's journey alongside us, you know?
Tim, what is the trifecta?
Yes, please.
It can be a little bit, I'm not trying to pitch this group, right? But it's like differentiation, demonstration, and validation. Like that's like the things we're trying to produce through via video on behalf of our brands, right? Ultimately, for the likes of this audience, is like that expression of why, that why piece is that differentiation, right? So we call them anthems, but they can be your sort of mission value pieces, right? So when along the buyer's journey that ad gets clicked on, this is typically that first thing you see, like on a website, right? That's one prong. The next prong are those explainers, right? We all know what those are. That's what you do and how you do it, right? It's that demonstration of those values, and that val prop, right? And then the third prong of the trifecta are what we call endorsements, but it's ultimately customer stories and testimonials, right? So that validation, that third party validation, that's like really important at that sort of like in that consideration phase, right? So all of these points like that, the FAQs basically get summarized through video.
It's so important to go back on something you were saying earlier, which is like, Tim had that figured out. He didn't need work to win work. It wasn't about the what, it was the why, that made Pennant successful from the get-go.
Yeah, because here's the meta I'm hearing is most production companies are built to service projects. They're on the receiving end of this thing called, hey, I have a project, can you go execute for me?
Yeah.
Which by definition is entirely reactive.
Yes.
And if anybody is listening and feeling a little like, oh shit, yeah, that model is being really challenged and upended. Now, someone like Tim comes along, I'm going to submit, and says, hey, maybe instead of servicing projects, we should solve problems for people that have really messy problems that don't wake up in the morning and say, you know what I really need is a video. Can I just find somebody who'll make me that video? Instead, they have a problem like, I got to launch this SaaS product, and then you show up and guess what you've done? You not only have a strategy, but you've also productized it.
Yeah.
Because you've put it into a framework that I can look at it and go, wow, somebody really thoughtful and smart has thought about this. And I can wrap my head around it. I can buy that. I can come to you and go, that trifecta thing, tell me more. I think that's what we need.
Yeah. And I think it's really helped in a soft sort of way, like show that we're in it for the long haul with this brand, right? We're not here to just like, cool, take your money, here's your thing. No, we want to help you build this so you're like successful along all the rungs of this buyer's journey ladder, you know?
I hope everyone in the world is waking up to the reality of how powerful I know it sounds very marketing-ish, right? To be like, I'm going to build a business that offers a strategy, that is a problem-solving model. And then we do this thing called productizing, right? Now I'm guessing is a lot of this super juju now spilling back to Vagrants, because I'm just going to guess that Vagrants is not just doing agency work over these years. You're doing brand direct work. And is there increasing opportunities in that direction?
Yeah, very much so. And a lot of this is rubbing off on us. And we're thinking about, how do we begin to market our services so people know what they're buying from us, and then to get us out of, as you say, just that pure execution standpoint. Because we were doing work directly with brands, and as we were talking about earlier, we were doing a lot of the creative work. We just didn't call it that, and we certainly didn't champion that, and
it was like a value add,
right? Exactly. It was just
we're just going to throw in the creative and the strategy,
and I'll just do the creative so that I can go shoot the thing I want to shoot.
Exactly. We always called it, and we thought we were being really smart by saying this. We always like said we will do creative just to get to the point where we're making something, and that it was just like we're doing this favor for you just so we can stop talking about making something and we can actually go do
desperately trying to make the thing.
Like you see it with it's probably worth noting that like the ICP, like the people we're selling to, our buyers, are
unpack that ICP for us.
I know. Ideal customer profile, right? Like that persona, that buyer type is like pretty unique too, to each side of the brands, right? It's like I'm really exclusively marketing, like product marketing, customer marketing directors, CMOs, like that's like my camp. And whereas yours, I would say, is more creative director, producer, especially from the agency realm, right? And it's like because our like the sort of ratios as a agency direct to brand is kind of all like melding in between us. It's like we're all recognizing the nuances between those different ICPs, but now we can like share that perspective with each other, which is like really powerful.
So now I'm curious, because as you guys are moving forward, whether as sister companies or individually, obviously you don't want to pick a fight with agencies out there, but are you becoming more agency-esque yourselves?
Yes, of course.
Right. And what does that mean?
So we just brought on an executive creative director. And the interesting story, she was a client of ours when we were working direct to brand. She was running an internal creative team at the time.
I'll interject too. I think a lot of the direct to brand, we should clarify, in our history is largely because a lot of big brands have really robust, great creative in-house teams.
That's right. That are almost agency like themselves.
Correct. All those people have they're all ex-agency people. They have that experience. They have those bona fides. And when we go and work with them, they know how to buy from us. Sure, we're working direct to brand, but these are basically internal little ad agencies that know full well how to buy from a production company. And that's where Jen, our new ECD, came from. She was running an in-house creative team and, hiring us in that way. And through 3 different positions, she worked with us.
Yep. She left. She went to an agency, hired us at that agency. She went to another, more of a media agency next. And actually, Tim and I went in and did the first Vagrants /Pennant pitch to her.
This is actually a slide from that.
That's funny. I love it right here.
Yeah. Which is like, little did we know we were just pitching our future ECD on joining us.
I love it.
So good.
So
good.
But yeah, so we brought her in because we want to be offering more strategic partnerships with brands. We want to bust into brands and really figure out and understand what isn't working for them. And every brand is built differently. Their internal teams are not. They might be comprised of agency peoples, but they're not staffed like agency people. And they all have certain capabilities and they lack certain other capabilities. And, what we are effectively trying to do is liberate them, this is a term we're using, creative liberation from these ineffective and inefficient processes by using what we've always done, this sort of production brain that is, this is your problem. We're going to fix your problem by bringing in the right talent and approaching it in the best creative way possible to ensure the best end product.
And I'll say the thing that most people in your situation are uncomfortable saying, and that is by being an external partner, right? This is part of where the word agency first gives rise to this idea of you go to somebody externally because they have the power to say no.
Right.
They have a vested interest in telling you the thing you don't want to hear. You can give them the tough love. You can actually, right, deliver the best creative because you're not a yes man.
Right.
It's like
yes.
you know what I mean? You have to, in a way, the brand has to sell you as much as you're selling them on this joint partnership is going to create something awesome together. But if we break that, this is, of course, why internal agencies struggle so much, is right. They want to produce this brilliant, great stuff, but they can't say no.
Right.
Yeah. The internal pressures are crazy, right?
Yeah.
And it's like that opportunity and really responsibility to be objective on behalf of that brand's audience is like the most tremendous thing for us. You know what I mean? It's like we could be devil's advocate for the right reasons, like doing it on behalf of this audience is like what gets us out of bed, right? So it's like, sure, brand, we're doing you're giving us a paycheck, but like we're doing it for the audience ultimately. And I think when they hear that, when these brands hear that, they're like, oh, good, they're in it for the right reasons too,
Yeah, and we still are those filmmakers at heart where we want to go out and we do want to make the coolest, flashiest thing we can. However, that cool, flashy thing is absolutely meaningless if it doesn't move the needle for the business. And there's so much swirl from on brand side and agency side that if you go out and you're the one responsible on the brand side for making the thing, and the thing costs a lot of money, there are a lot of overages spent on the production company because they pitch this big idea and then ultimately the thing doesn't work, then what's the purpose of it all? And those people, are on the hot seat and they will lose their jobs if it doesn't
exactly
work.
And then that's a bad thing for all of us who want to continue to make the thing, because they're like, right. That crash and burn for, any number of reasons, usually an executive saying, oh, it didn't reach some KPI or whatever, right. And it's like, so yeah, having the opportunity to like help advise and give sound counsel to like look beyond just the shiny object in this moment. Huge.
Well, man, I appreciate you guys so much for being generous to your peers, right? To the industry, to anyone that's listening. I appreciate your leadership. Also very excited for the Fuse dinner tonight.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
It's going to be really great. It's going to be an awesome conversation. I think somewhat historic. And also just thanks for being supporters of the community that we're building inside Forum and showing up and being participants in that, because we're proving this idea of if we all come together, we actually do make each other stronger, and we're going to master this art of the business thing together. So I'm grateful.
100%. For anyone listening to the pod, there's a lot more out there. We welcome you in. It's been so tremendously helpful for us, and that's no bullshit.
Thank you. Well, thanks, guys. So
thank you, Joel.
Thank you, Joel.
Tim,
this is fun.
It's been fun for sure.
Keep up the good work.
Let's do it again sometime.
Thanks for listening, and huge thank you to our amazing audio partner, Coop Studios, who makes this show possible. If you're serious about running a resilient studio or production company that unleashes your greatest creative work, apply to join Forum. Learn more at joelpilger.com, and I'll see you there.